Don't eat me too. The chicken sizzled in the pan, fat crackling and hissing under the dome of the atmospheric tent. The scent of garlic, smoke, and spice filled the filtered air, the kind of smell that could make a man forget he was light years away from Earth. Dr. Caleb Maris, xenanthropologist and one of the only humans assigned to the research outpost on Sci-Fi, hunched over his small camp stove with pride. Real meat, not the rehydrated lab-grown nonsense from the station. This was a treat, freeze-dried, but still Earth chicken. And tonight, it was dinner. He turned the meat with tongs, the skin golden and crisp, juices sizzling. That's when the screaming started, high-pitched, echoing. From outside Dun WHA, something slammed against the tent's transparent side. Caleb jumped back, knocking over a bottle of seasoning. A smudge of purple ichor smeared the outer wall where the impact had landed. Slowly sliding down, he recognized the face immediately. Wide silver eyes, translucent skin glowing faintly under the twin moons. Alira, one of the local alien girls, who'd taken a curious liking to human gadgets and stories. She'd come by the camp before, often watching him from a distance, mimicking his movements, trying to understand him. Now, she looked horrified. No, 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 she shrieked in broken Terran dialect. You eat your own. She stumbled backward, limbs flailing, slipping in the sand. Then she turned and bolted toward the forest ridge, screaming something in her native tongue. Fast, sharp syllables that made Caleb's translator device glitch out trying to process. Caleb stood frozen, spatula in one hand, chicken still sizzling. Behind him, wet Alira. What? But she was gone. The darkness swallowed her. He blinked at the empty horizon, then slowly turned back, toward the tent. The smell of roasted meat suddenly felt, heavy, ominous. The forest was quiet, too quiet. The next morning, Caleb ventured out of the tent, taking slow, cautious steps. Sci-Fi's sun glinted over the treetops. Normally, this time of day, the nearby alien settlement would be humming with activity. Smoke from cook fires, Lothram songs echoing through the canyon, children playing with stone gliders. Today, silenced on no songs, no movement, not a soul in sight. He approached the edge of the alien village, a set of curved structures half sunken into the red earth, like seashells turned into homes. Every door was closed, windows shuttered. Strange woven symbols were tied to the doorposts. He recognized them as warning glyphs, not aggressive, but fearful, warding. He knocked gently on the nearest door. No answer. Tried another dot. Nothing. As he turned to leave, he noticed something just at the base of the communal well, carved into the soft sand by hand. Cannibal. He froze. The word buzzed in his translator. The last time he'd seen it was in a research paper on ancient Sci-Fi mythology, referenced in a vague, symbolic context. Those who reverse the flesh consume their own to gain spirit. Surely they didn't think he had eaten ... No, that was insane, wasn't it? That night, he couldn't sleep. Every creak of the outpost's walls made him twitch. Every gust of wind scratching against the dome's surface felt like a warning. At 2:14 station time, his tent's external motion sensor chimed softly. Movement. He opened the feed. Nothing there. Except. He leaned closer. In the dirt outside. Faint at first, but more visible under night vision symbols. Burned into the earth, not drawn. Circular spirals, each linked to the next like a chain. In the center was the same glyph from earlier Krekth, but this time, it wasn't just in the sand. Someone or something had scratched it into the metal frame of his tent door. Deep, sharp. Cannibal. Caleb didn't leave the outpost the next day. Instead, he called the Orbital Comms Relay and submitted a request for backup support and cultural mediation. The reply came back hours later. Outpost Sci-Fi. No response from primary uplink. Signal delay active. Estimated repair time, 18 hours. Great. Alone. Cut off. Surrounded by a terrified alien population who now believed he was some kind of mythic flesh-eater. All because of a piece of chicken. He stared down at the empty pan. In the sink, bile rising in his throat. What had they thought they saw? Did Alira believe he'd eaten another human? The pieces started to click together. She didn't know what a chicken was. All she saw was him slicing into a familiar-shaped creature, bone and muscle and fat, and eating it without hesitation. The humans hadn't exactly taught the Celians about Earth cuisine in depth. Most diplomatic efforts focused on technology, medicine, shared science. No one had thought to explain meat, or that Earth had animals bred for food. To her, it must have looked like a ritual killing. A memory surfaced. Alira once mimicked him, brushing his teeth, then gagged and ran when she saw the foam. She didn't understand the concept of spitting. Their biology was different, their customs stranger still. What else had they misunderstood? He sat down, rubbing his temples. This wasn't just a miscommunication. This was cultural trauma, and it was spreading. He pulled out his portable translator drone, setting it to analyze the symbols from the sand. As the glyphs loaded, the drone buzzed slightly, scanning for matches in his database of Celian historical texts. Then it stopped. Match found. Category: mythology, forbidden knowledge, translation, flesh reversers, the ones who ate their own, and beneath it, in smaller characters, if they return, we vanish. Do not let them speak. Do not let them stay. The last time ... we barely survived. Caleb's skin prickled. He stared at the translation, heart pounding, breath shallow. This wasn't just about a misunderstanding over dinner. This was ancient. This was a memory, and he'd just triggered it. The Whispering Stones. Caleb didn't leave the outpost for the next 24 hours. He barricaded the entrance flap, turned off all external lights, and pulled a cot up near the main terminal in case he got a signal from orbit. He kept the drone's translation logs open on his tablet, replaying the ancient glyph match over and over. Flesh reversers, the ones who ate their own. If they return, we vanish. Do not let them speak. Do not let them stay. What did it mean? Was it just myth? Or did the Celians have some actual history with humans, before official contact? No, that couldn't be. Human records clearly stated Sci-Fi was first explored 23 years ago. A long-range probe detected life signs, and the first crew touched down 9 years later. Caleb was part of the third wave of long-term researchers sent to build bridges and share knowledge. Nothing in the logs suggested earlier contact. Nothing mentioned violence. But what if something was erased or buried? He stared at the message in the sand again, then at the scorch marks circling the outpost. Something about them seemed ritualistic. Caleb sat up straight. The Whispering Stones, they were just over the eastern ridge, an ancient ring of black, jagged rocks, unlike anything else on the planet's surface. The Celians avoided them religiously. Every time he asked about them, elders would wave their hands and change the subject. The area was uncharted in the official maps, marked as a cultural no-go zone by planetary diplomacy teams, which of course made Caleb all the more curious. He grabbed his drone, a water flask, and his recording headset. He'd hike to the stones. Before dusk, maybe they'd offer some context, some clue about the symbols burned into his camp. He hesitated by the door. Should he go out alone? He laughed bitterly under his breath. Was there another option? The walk took 40 minutes. By the time he reached the ridge, sweat clung to his back, and the sky had begun to shift from a pale violet to the deep blue that marked Celian dusk. Then he saw them. Black stone monoliths, towering, silent, arranged in a circle the size of a small arena. Each was different, some smooth, others jagged, all positioned with deliberate precision. They hummed faintly, a kind of subsonic vibration you didn't hear so much as feel in your teeth. Caleb stepped between two pillars and into the ring. Nothing happened, but then he noticed it. Carvings at the base of each stone. At the base of each stone etched glyphs, spiraling patterns, familiar, identical to the symbols burned into the sand around his camp. He knelt down to record. His translator drone hovered over the markings, scanning and processing. A moment later, it chirped. Translation: the first fire. The day the sky opened. The reversal of the flesh. The silence that followed. Caleb swallowed hard. He stepped to the next stone. Different pattern, different sequence. They came in forms like us, eyes that shine, teeth of stone. They smiled. As they consumed, it turned inside out. What made us whole? Another. We hid, we forgot. We told our children it was a story, but the earth remembers. The sky remembers. The taste of fire does not fade. He stood slowly, heart thudding against his ribs. They weren't talking about a myth. They were talking about humans. Or something very much like them. A gust of wind blew through the stones, setting off a high, mournful tone, like a flute made of bones. Caleb turned in a slow circle. In the dimming light, the black stones looked like gravestones, or warnings, monuments left behind by a terrified people. He backed out of the ring, careful not to touch the carvings. The last glyph he'd translated stayed burned into his brain. They smiled as they consumed. He had smiled while cooking the chicken. Could that had been what Alira saw? A monstrous grin before devouring a body. God! He reached the bottom of the ridge just as the sun dipped below the horizon. The twin moons were rising, one orange, the other pale blue. Shadows stretched across the valley like fingers. Then he saw her dot. Alira. She stood on the trail just ahead of his camp. Alone. No guards. No elders. Her silver eyes were wide with fear but also confusion. She didn't run this time. He slowed, holding up his hands. I'm not going to hurt you, I swear. She blinked slowly. Her translator pendant buzzed, catching his words. Alira took a step forward. You eat your kin. Caleb shook his head. No, I don't. What I ate, it's called chicken. It's a different animal, not human, not like me. She didn't respond. He tried again. I would never eat one of my own. She lowered her head. But the one before did. His skin crawled. What? Her voice cracked. My great-mother's great-mother told a story of a human who came before the official first contact. He walked with our people, smiled like you, laughed like you. But when famine came, she swallowed. He broke the pact. They stood in silence as night fully settled. Caleb's mind raced. Someone had been here, a human before any known expedition. They had lived among the Sealians and then, in desperation or madness, committed the unthinkable. A cultural scar was born, a trauma that echoed across generations. He thought back to the military reports he'd skimmed back on Earth, mentions of a lost scout crew in this sector, gone dark before proper mapping. Their logs were sealed, unclassified only in fragments. No mention of survivors. Maybe there was one, and maybe that person destroyed everything. I need to know more, Caleb said gently. Please, help me understand. Where is the story told? Where was the one before buried? Alira hesitated. The elders will not allow you to ask. They fear your kind. Do you fear me? Her voice was a whisper. I don't know yet. Then she turned and ran into the dark. When Caleb returned to the outpost, exhausted and chilled, the first thing he saw made his heart stop. On the edge of the sand outside the tent, the symbols had changed. New glyphs now encircled the camp. Not warning. A new word, repeated again and again. He returns. The Forbidden Gallery. Caleb didn't sleep well that night. The phrase burned itself into his mind. He returns. It echoed in the silence outside his outpost, like a ghost's warning. Whatever the Selians feared had been buried deep in there, past, but now it had been unearthed again, and the tremors of that fear were spreading faster than he could understand. Morning light crept through the translucent walls of the outpost, pale and cold. Caleb dressed quickly, pulled on his utility belt, and grabbed the small handheld scanner he used to study alien artifacts. Today, he had only one thought: find answers. The alien village remained eerily deserted, a ghost town cloaked in suspicion and dread. He wandered among the half-buried huts, scanning for any sign of life or message. It was then he noticed the path leading into the dense woods, overgrown but clearly used recently. Following it cautiously, Caleb soon came upon a structure that didn't appear on any of his official maps. The entrance was nearly hidden behind thick vines and twisted roots, but the unmistakable shape of carved stone walls and a heavy rounded doorway was clear. The temple. Local legend spoke of the Forbidden Gallery, an ancient site where the Selian historians recorded their darkest truths and their oldest fears. The place was taboo, locked away by elders who feared the knowledge within could reignite old terrors. Caleb's heart pounded as he pried the heavy stone door open. It groaned on ancient hinges, releasing decades of stale air and the faint scent of minerals and moss. Inside, the chamber stretched far beyond what he expected, lit by bioluminescent fungi that bathed the walls in a pale green glow. Rows of stone tablets and murals lined the walls, telling stories through intricate pictographs and scenes carved with meticulous detail. His eyes caught on the murals. Grotesque images of figures consuming each other, shadows twisted in agony and desperation. But what made Caleb's breath catch was one image in particular, a humanoid figure, unmistakably human, its features clear beneath the layers of alien artistry. The figure stood among the devouring, a singular face etched with sorrow and madness, surrounded by alien faces contorted in fear. Caleb traced his fingers over the mural carefully, the cold stone pressing into his skin. This was no myth. This was history. As he explored deeper into the gallery, he found a sealed chamber, marked by a thick stone slab carved with strange glyphs warning against entry. But curiosity overcame caution. With effort, he pushed the slab aside and stepped inside. There, resting on a stone pedestal, was an object that sent a shiver down his spine. A rusted, tarnished dog tag, earth-made, military style. Faded letters etched into the metal, almost indecipherable, but still legible. Marcus Hale, Expedition 2067. His mind reeled. 2067, that was the year his own grandfather had trained as a pilot, before the first wave of deep space exploration missions, the year before the first official contact with Sci-Fi. How had this piece of Earth ended up? Buried in an alien temple on a distant planet. Caleb's scanner picked up faint traces of organic material, embedded beneath the tag's surface. DNA, not fully human, altered, mutated. The temple seemed to hold more secrets than he could have imagined. As he stepped out of the chamber, a distant voice echoed faintly through the stone corridors. Intruder. He froze. It wasn't his imagination. Someone else was inside the forbidden gallery. He moved swiftly back toward the entrance, but a shadow flickered ahead. From the darkness emerged a figure, small, lithe, silver skin shimmering faintly in the fungal light. Alira, you should not be here, she whispered urgently. This place, it holds our worst truths. Caleb held up the dog tag. Do you know who this is? Her eyes darkened with sorrow. Marcus Hale, the one before. The man who broke the truce. She stepped closer. Long ago, your people came not as explorers, but as invaders. At first, we welcomed them. They learned our ways, lived among us. But then, hunger took them, desperation. One of them betrayed the peace, and consumed one of ours. Caleb swallowed hard. One of your people? Yes, she said, voice breaking. It was the beginning of the nightmare. The legend of the flesh of our fear, our curse, passed down through generations. He felt the weight of history pressing down on him. This was no simple misunderstanding over a meal. This was a wound so deep, it had shaped an entire culture's identity. Suddenly, the ground beneath them trembled, a low rumble. The temple's ancient stones shifting. Caleb grabbed Alira's arm as a hidden trapdoor slid open, revealing a spiraling staircase descending into darkness. Do we dare go deeper? She asked, eyes wide. Caleb nodded. We have to know the whole story. They descended into the depths, the air growing colder, the walls narrowing at the bottom. A vast cavern opened before them, filled with relics and faded paintings depicting battles, rituals, and faces. And in the center lay a crude stone coffin sealed with ancient markings. Caleb brushed away the dust, revealing an inscription. Here lies the one who turned flesh against flesh. A chill ran down Caleb's spine. The past wasn't just history, it was a warning. He looked at Alira, who nodded solemnly. We are not so different, she said quietly. Our stories are linked. Caleb's hand closed around the dog tag. In his pocket, one truth was clear. The mystery of humans and Celians was far deeper and darker than either species had ever imagined. They were here. Before us. Caleb sat alone in the dim light of the outpost, the weight of the dog tag pressing against his palm. It was a tangible link to a lost past, a ghost from a secret chapter of history that official records ignored or concealed. The walls around him were silent, but inside, his mind raced, questions piling up, answers slipping just beyond reach. Who was Marcus Hale? What happened to him and his crew? Why was the Celian fear of humans so deep-rooted, so absolute? And why had the elders hidden the truth for so long? He powered up the outpost's main terminal, fingers trembling slightly as he connected to the external network. The orbital relay was still down, so he tapped into the deep archive stored locally, a collection of fragmented transmissions and declassified Earth mission reports cached for emergencies. His screen flickered as lines of text scrolled past. Project Starbridge, 2064-207, to Deep Space Reconnaissance Mission Target, Celi 4 System. Mission lost contact, 2067 crew presumed dead then. A file marked confidential, authorized personnel only. He clicked cautiously. Inside was a journal scans of handwritten entries from Marcus Hale himself. Day 142. The landing was smooth. The natives are cautious but curious. We have established tentative peace. Their technology and biology are unlike anything we've seen, but communication is possible. Day 163. Food supplies are low. We rely on local flora and fauna. They offered US rations, but I fear their meat is not like ours. Day 169. Tensions rising. One of our men disappeared. Search teams found signs of struggle. The natives are nervous. Speaking of old legends. Day 172. I made a terrible mistake. Hunger drove me to eat something forbidden. They called it a sacred sacrifice. It was an alien. Day 174. The tribe turned on us. We are prisoners now. I fear this will be my last entry. Caleb's breath caught. The fear, the misunderstanding. It had happened before. A human had broken a sacred pact long before the official explorers arrived, and the repercussions rippled through generations. His screen buzzed with a low signal alert, a faint incoming message from orbit. The connection was unstable but readable. Command, Dr. Maris, your situation is critical. Cell4 quarantine is active, evacuation delayed. Await further orders. He wasn't alone in this. But there was no rescue coming anytime soon. Outside, the alien village remained shrouded in silence, the quarantine seals glowing faintly under the twin moons. Caleb's communicator crackled softly. He switched channels to a static-filled transmission, and a voice came through, trembling but clear. Human, ... It was Alira. The elders won't listen. They fear what happened before. ... Double quotes, she whispered. They say all humans are cursed devourers of their own kind. Caleb's chest tightened. He thought back to the day they met her curious gaze. The hesitant steps, the growing trust shattered by fear. Alira, he replied softly, I need your help. We need to find proof, something to show them that not all humans are like Marcus Hale, that we can be allies. There was a long pause. Then she answered, voice barely audible. I will try, but you must be careful. The elders watch us all. Days passed in tense waiting. Caleb pored over the journal, cross-referencing Celian history with Earth records. The pieces began to form a grim mosaic of betrayal, fear, and survival. One night, as Caleb studied a map of the Forbidden Gallery, his drone buzzed urgently. A new signal weak, but Rial came from beneath the cliffs where the ancient temple rested. He activated the external cam and saw movement figures, cloaked in dark robes, moving silently toward a concealed entrance. Curiosity and desperation pushed Caleb to prepare for a secret expedition. He packed essentials, translator device, a light source, and the journal entries for reference. When he reached the cavern entrance, Alira was waiting. Her eyes glinted in the low light. This way, she urged. Inside, the cavern twisted and turned. Walls etched with murals depicting ancient conflicts and the dark pact, broken by humans long ago. They reached a hidden alcove filled with relics, weapons, clothing fragments, and ancient communication devices, some clearly of human origin, yet centuries old. Alira pointed to a mural, a human figure with a broken spear, surrounded by angry Celian warriors. He tried to make peace, she said, but hunger, fear, they shattered it. Suddenly, distant voices echoed down the tunnels. The elders, Caleb and Alira, exchanged a glance. We must hide, she whispered urgently. They slipped into a narrow passage just as the elders arrived, their faces grim and hardened by centuries of sorrow and suspicion. Caleb's heart pounded. This was his chance to confront the truth, to plead for understanding. But the elders spoke not to him, but to each other. The flesh reverses return, one intoned. We cannot risk another betrayal. But this is different, Alira said, stepping forward. He is not one of them. The elders turned sharply, eyes blazing. Then prove it, the elders demanded. Show us the proof of peace, or the quarantine remains. Caleb stepped forward, holding up the dog tag and the journal. This is our history, he said, but it's not our future. We can build trust if you let us. The room fell silent. Then, a slow nod from the eldest. Very well, but the path will not be easy. Outside, the quarantine seals flickered. A fragile hope was born. The broken, the air inside the ancient chamber was thick with tension. Caleb's heart pounded louder than the steady drip of moisture echoing from the cavern walls. The elders' faces, carved with centuries of grief and suspicion, bore down on him like a weight that threatened to crush every hope he carried. Alira stood by his side, her silver eyes shimmering with a mix of defiance and sorrow. She was his only ally in this room filled with generations of fear. The eldest spoke first, voice low and sharp as a blade. "We have heard your words and seen your proof, human, but history is not so easily undone. You speak of peace, but the scars run deep." Caleb nodded slowly, swallowing the lump in his throat. "I understand. But fear and anger have kept us apart for too long. The story your people tell, the myth of the flesh reversers, is not just a tale. It is a memory of betrayal. But it was one person, not all of us." He looked into the faces of the elders, searching for a flicker of hope. "We can learn from the past, but we must not be prisoners to it." The eldest's gaze hardened. "The flesh reversers, the ones who consumed their own to survive. It was your kind, was it not?" Caleb took a deep breath and nodded. Double quotes, "Yes. In the journal I found Marcus Hale confessed to breaking the pact. He ate an alien to survive during a famine. It was a desperate act, but it shattered the fragile trust." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Alira's voice rose, steady and clear. "The elders speak true. That event forged our fear. It shaped our culture and our laws. But it was a single tragedy, not the nature of all humans." Caleb stepped forward, placing the dog tag on the stone altar. "This is a symbol of that past. But here, in this place, I offer a new promise. We seek not to consume, but to understand. Not to conquer, but to coexist." The eldest regarded the dog tag with reverence, then looked to Alira. "She speaks with wisdom. You have shown courage coming here, human." He paused, then nodded. "Very well. The quarantine shall be lifted, but on one condition." Caleb's eyes narrowed. "What condition?" The elder's voice was solemn. "You must help us uncover the truth behind the ancient prophecy, the reason the flesh reversers were feared. Beyond the betrayal, there is a deeper secret buried in the past." Alira stepped forward. "The prophecy speaks of a bond between our peoples, a hidden link that transcends the pain. We believe it is the key to peace." Caleb felt a surge of hope. "I will do whatever it takes." Over the next days, Caleb and Alira worked side by side, poring over the ancient murals and relics. The temple revealed secrets that blurred the line between myth and history. They discovered fossilized remains of a humanoid hybrid, a fusion of alien and human DNA, buried deep beneath the cliffs. The findings stunned the elders and Caleb alike. "This changes everything," Caleb said softly. Alira nodded. "Our ancestors were intertwined, long before recorded time. We share blood, history, and fate. But the discovery brought more questions than answers. Who created this hybrid? Was it a natural evolution, or the result of an ancient experiment? And why had this truth been buried?" Caleb's thoughts raced as he pieced together fragments of data. The prophecy, the betrayal, the quarantine, all were part of a much larger story. Late one night, as the twin moons rose high, Caleb sent a secure transmission to Earth Command. He detailed the discovery, the ancient betrayal, and the fragile hope for peace. But the response chilled him. Further investigation suspended pending review. No additional personnel authorized. Caleb realized they were on their own. Back on Sci-Fi, tensions simmered beneath the surface. The elders debated the next steps while the quarantine seals flickered uncertainly. Alira approached Caleb one evening, her eyes heavy with worry. "The elders fear what this means. Some want to destroy the hybrid remains. They believe it will only bring more pain." Caleb shook his head. "No, we must protect it. It is the key to healing." Suddenly, the outpost's alarms blared. "Intruders," the security system warned. Caleb grabbed his communicator. "Alira, get to safety. I'll handle this." He raced to the entrance as figures emerged from the shadows. Members of a radical faction within the Celian elders determined to end human presence permanently. A tense standoff followed. Caleb's voice was steady but firm. "We seek peace. Violence will only destroy that." After tense negotiations, the radicals withdrew, but the threat remained. Caleb knew the road ahead would be fraught with danger, but with Alira by his side and the truth unveiled, there was a chance to rewrite the story of two worlds. "We are not monsters." The cavern's air was thick with the scent of damp stone and ancient secrets as Caleb and Alira stood before the fossilized remains, the hybrid of human and Celian DNA, preserved for millennia beneath the cliffs of Sci-Fi. The flickering glow of bioluminescent fungi cast shifting shadows across the bones, and for the first time in days, a fragile hope stirred within Caleb's chest. "This changes everything," Caleb whispered, turning to Alira. "If our people share this bond, maybe all the fear, all the hatred, isn't the whole story. Alira's silver eyes reflected the soft light as she nodded slowly. We are not so different. The prophecy wasn't a curse, it was a warning, a reminder of what we must protect. The elders had gathered in the great hall, their faces etched with the centuries of sorrow and suspicion, now tempered with cautious curiosity. Caleb stood at the center, the dog tag and relics laid out before them like offerings. Elder Mulin, the eldest of the council, spoke gravely. We feared the past would condemn us forever, but perhaps it is the truth that will set us free. The room was heavy with silence as the council voted. The quarantine seals flickered and finally faded from the village's borders, opening the way for communication, cooperation, and reconciliation. Outside, the Celian community slowly returned to life. Fires sparked in hearths, children's laughter echoed once again, and the scars of fear began to heal. Yet Caleb knew the path forward would not be easy. Later, alone with Alira beneath the twin moons, Caleb spoke softly. Fear runs deep in all of us, but so does hope. We must learn to see beyond what scares us. Alira smiled faintly. Your people say, humanity. Yeah, but it's not just pride. It's the courage to face our own darkness and choose light. Their bond had become a symbol, a bridge between worlds that once seemed so far apart. Months passed. The outpost transformed into a beacon of unity, a place where humans and Celians shared knowledge, culture, and friendship. Caleb often stood on the ridge overlooking the Whispering Stones, remembering the day he first stepped into their circle, unsure and afraid. Now, those stones sang a new song, a song of hope, of healing, and of futures yet unwritten. One evening, as the stars shimmered above the alien sky, Caleb received a message from Earth Command. The quarantine had been lifted officially, and a new mission was being planned, a joint human-Celian exploration of the system. The discovery of the hybrid remains had sparked interest and wonder. It reminded humanity that they were not alone, and that sometimes the deepest mysteries lay within themselves. As Caleb prepared for the next chapter of exploration, he reflected on the journey that began with a simple, misunderstood meal. From terror to trust, from myth to truth, the story of humans and Celians was finally whole. That final lesson: fear is powerful, it shapes cultures, divides worlds, and shadows hearts. But truth and empathy have greater strength. They can turn monsters into mirrors, enemies into allies, and legends into living stories. Caleb's last thought before sleep was simple but profound. We are not monsters, we are mirrors. What we fear most in others is what we refuse to face in ourselves. The end.